Hi guys and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing my March book wrap up. I have already filmed this video before but the footage was really blurry, so I just decided to put up my book haul video instead of that one. So I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in March. In March I read about 5 books and yeah, let's just find out what I thought about some of them. As a bit of a side note, I am feeling a bit under the weather, but you know, needs must that I must actually record this video, otherwise I'll have nothing to go up. The first book that I read is Midnight by Jacqueline Wilson. As I mentioned in my other video, I'm part of a Jacqueline Wilson book club and this was the book that was picked to be read for that month. So I think when I talked about this in my book haul, I was halfway through this book and I was enjoying the book. I got to the end and I really didn't like the book. Not that I didn't like the book, I didn't like the ending. I thought the book was really good, but I also feel like me not liking the book is not a huge thing because I'm not the book's target market. This book is for like young adults, for kids. So me not liking it is not actually the end of the world. I still think Jacqueline Wilson is a brilliant writer. I guess I just didn't really like the ending because there was nothing exciting happened. Everything was kind of resolved, not like tied together with a neat bow, but things are resolved or on the way to being resolved, which I think is what you need in a book like this anyway. Midnight is about a girl named Violet who is growing up with her brother Will. She has her mum and her dad, and you find out that her brother Will has just found out a huge secret. It is kind of life altering for him, and he's a teenage boy, so he's already started to like withdraw quite a bit from the family anyway. Him and Violet were really close when they were growing up together, but Violet's just finding as time passes that actually Will just really seems to dislike her and dislikes the family, and she, much like a lot of Jacqueline Wilson's characters, she doesn't really have that many friends in school. She hangs around with these 2 girls that she doesn't really like. So basically the way the story goes is Violet is really obsessed with an illustrator called Casper Dreams, and throughout the books you see these illustrations of these like fairies that he's drawn, and she writes to him all the time. However, she never sends those letters. One day at school a new girl named Jasmine starts. Everyone wants to be her friend, she's stunning, and she picks Violet as a friend, so those two form quite a close friendship. However, Violet isn't the only one interested in Jasmine. Her brother Will also thinks Jasmine is really attractive. Now, another part of the story that goes on is the fact that Will makes Violet play these sort of games. Well, they are games, but they're sort of, I don't know, the way that it's portrayed in the book when Violet starts talking about it is that they're really dark, horrible games. And I guess Violet is 13 and I think her brother is 15. And I guess maybe, I don't know, I don't think at 13 you would think these games are really dark and morbid. I was just expecting something so much more dark and morbid, but he basically likes just playing freaky versions of Truth or Dare. And by freaky I don't mean anything sexual, I just mean that he likes to scare his sister a lot, and one of the dares is that they go into the next door neighbour's house where someone has died in there, and he tells her to go to the attic, and the attic is full of bats, and that scares her. He says he doesn't know that the bats are there, but then she just gets really angry naturally and is just like, oh, I don't trust you anymore. So that's the sort of dynamic between her and her brother. Her brother's really horrible to her and she can't figure out why. She's just like, we used to be really good friends, why is this happening? One day she invites Jasmine over and Will is there. Will is obviously really interested in her and he wants to stay, and they end up playing a game of Truth or Dare. They send Violet up to the attic, and whilst Violet is actually up in the attic she comes across like a box which is basically things to do with the history of Will and the history of the family. But while she's up there, she realises she's been up there for ages. She was only meant to be up there for like 5 minutes or something. And she realises she's actually been up there for a while. So she comes back down, opens like either her bedroom or her brother's bedroom, and walks in on Jasmine and Will getting quite intimate, as in they're about to kiss or something like that. And she runs out. She's really angry, she's really annoyed, she basically feels really used by the pair of them. She then decides she's going to go out and find Casper Dreams. By pure coincidence, and I guess pure luck because it's a book, she bumps into Casper Dream just because she's standing out in the dress that she held for him, meets him, all very happy, nice, and then she comes home, her brother's like, I've been so worried about you, like I never wanted to hurt you. She reveals at the family dinner the family secret that she found out, and I guess the family from that point start to sort of bond and I guess, you know, make way to having a nice life. So that is the long and short of the story. I don't know if I should do in these wrap-ups the just retelling of the story because I can't seem to be very concise, but anyway. That's the story. It's not a bad story, it's not my favourite Jacqueline Wilson story, but as it goes it's not a terrible story. I think if you were 13 or you were around that age and you were reading a book like this and you had a horrible brother, you might find solace in this. It's actually not a bad book. I gave this book a 2 out of 5 on Goodreads, just because it was okay. I didn't find anything special about it, I didn't hate it, but it wasn't my favourite. The next book I read is Relight My Fire by Joanna Bolouri. I'm not sure if I'm saying her surname properly. So this is actually part of, I guess, a series of books. So the first one I know is The List. I'm not sure if there's a second one in this, or if this is the third one. But anyway, regardless, doesn't really matter. The List is one of my favourite books ever. It is so funny, and I've recommended it to so many people just because it's hilarious. The List is a book about a woman who creates a list of 10 sexual things she wants to do. The 10 things are hilarious in itself, but it's also the way she goes about them that is so funny. The book is brilliant. If you haven't read that, I encourage you to read it. In The List, it features on the character Phoebe, and in this book, Relight My Fire, she is now with someone, and it's sort of how they're going through life. So they have a kid together, and I guess they've just hit a wall in their relationship where they're not really sleeping with each other anymore. They don't seem to be communicating with each other anymore. So they decide to go and see a therapist, which is someone that she's already seen before, and it's a bit of a freaky therapist. And she just gives them advice. So it's really funny because she gives them like a sex jar, so then they put in things that they really want to do sexually but they haven't really been able to ask each other, and it's just really funny in that sense, like their sexual desires, but then it also unravels a bit of communication between them too, and also unravels some secrets that they didn't know about each other. Some that I guess could be a bit harmful to a relationship, but they decided to like work on it. The book is really funny. It's not my favourite because I think nothing will beat the original, but it's a nice sort of ending for the two characters. I don't think the book ended how I would have liked it to end, but I didn't write the book, and I think the two characters did need to come together and have a nice happy ending because I feel like they've both been through so much. There isn't really much to tell from the story apart from that. I would encourage you to read the first book and then obviously read this book afterwards, but it's a great story, and I think like Joanna is hilarious. The way she writes it's so funny. I was reading this on the tube and there were just so many parts I was rereading and just holding in my laughter because it was so funny. It's a kind of book that you don't want anyone to be reading over your shoulder because then they're going to be like, what the fuck are you reading? But absolutely hilarious. Some dirty bits in there, some funny bits in there. Overall, it's a really good book. I gave the book a 4 out of 5 because it made me laugh and I just loved it. Like I said, I didn't think it was as fantastic as The List, but it just made me laugh so much, and I just think the characters are brilliant, they're hilarious, like they just remind me a lot of me and my friends. Like they're just so wild, they say the most outrageous things, do the most outrageous things, but they're still like normal girls who go to work, have normal lives. So yeah, 4 out of 5, brilliant book. The next book I read is this small little one by Lorde, which is The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House. When I picked this book up in my book haul, I said I didn't know absolutely anything about it, and I know it's part of the Penguin series of things that they're releasing. So they're just, I think, featuring popular collections or popular essays or poems from certain writers and just making them more accessible to people, so putting them in a small book so that it's more easy for people to get into them. I absolutely loved this book, or this little small collection of things. She is a brilliant writer, and I was just so astounded by how what she was writing felt like it could have been written today. And that sounds like a bad thing. It sounds like a bad thing because it feels like, well, has nothing changed since then? But that's not what I mean. I just mean that the way she talks is not dated in any way. Like, the things she's speaking about are still things that are really prominent now. But this was written in like 1970. She died in 1992, so she died like literally a year after I was born. And these things are still so relevant today. When she was writing, I was literally like, I feel you, I really do feel you. This is a great introduction to her work, and it has encouraged me to pick up more of her work. So the basic gist of what this book is there, I think she has 5 essays or collections in here, and she just talks about, so in one of them, the title is The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House. So it's obviously talking about like black people and slavery, basically saying we cannot use what they've given us to break them down. There has to be another way to be able to, you know, fight racism, fight the man, fight whoever, but we can't use what they've given us to break them down. That's not going to work. The final bit is her also talking about the 1960s and like Malcolm X and just things to do with like academics and how they criticise people. So she's also saying just because she's a black lesbian woman doesn't make her opinions or her thoughts any less valid. Such a great introductory piece to her, and I'm so happy that I read this, and I'm so happy that Penguin did this because I think Putting it in the format like this makes it more accessible to people who aren't likely to read, not even her work, but a lot of the people's works featured in this series that they're releasing. I really, really enjoyed this, and like I said, I'm going to pick up more of her work. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 because, as you can tell, I really, really enjoyed it. There wasn't anything in here that I was like, no, I don't like this. I really, really identified with this so much, and I just think she's brilliant. The next book I read is Little Black Book. I absolutely loved this book. I found this book absolutely invaluable. Like, there are so many things in here that I just didn't think of, which is, I guess, what the point of the book is, to make you think about things that usually they don't even cross your mind. So in here she talks about contracts, she talks about intellectual property, negotiating, places to find work, but also workspaces, you can, like co-working spaces you can work in. I thought this book was just absolutely brilliant. The book is so well written, and everything is just written in like bite-sized chunks. There's no complicated words, there's no like jargon in it. It's just really, really down to earth and helpful. There's also a section in it from like so they're little quotes from other people who do freelance work and just talking about balance and things like that, and just little bits of inspiration. But overall, I would really, really recommend this book if you were thinking about like sort of transitioning from 9 to 5 to like freelance life. I'm astounded by how good this book is. I've also seen quite a few people talking about this book now that after I picked it up, I saw quite a few people talking about it, people who are also freelance, and they gave it really positive reviews as well. So I think this book definitely is a gem, and it's definitely one you need to pick up if you're considering something like this. And it goes without saying that I gave this book a 5 out of 5. Absolutely brilliant. The final book that I read in March was Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine. So I picked this book up because I was tired of reading one of the books I was reading, and I'm still currently reading that book. So I think I started reading Lincoln in the Bardo around the 13th of March, and usually if I pick up a book that early in the month, I am done with it, completely done with it. But I'm filming this in April and I'm not finished with that book. I have actually now decided to listen to it in audio format, so I'm listening to it on Audible. And I remember saying in my book haul, oh, maybe I'll like this book. I don't like the book. So I've now gotten past the point in when I stopped reading it. I stopped reading it because I couldn't understand what was happening in the book. Like, the beginning bit was absolutely fine. Then all of a sudden the boy gets taken, you already know what happens in the book, the boy gets taken to this other world, and all of a sudden there's like 10,000 voices speaking, and I'm like, what is going on in this story? Like, so I was so confused, and I kept on reading it. I was just like, this is not getting any clearer for me. And then I got one of those free credit things from Amazon, and I was like, let me listen to the book in audio format. So now that I've listened to the book in audio format, I'm only like 1/3 of the way through actually, and I've gone past the bit that I finished off in the book. I understand now what was happening, and as the story is going on, I'm like, okay, I understand. I don't like the book, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe I'll like it when it ends. However, I think because I struggled with it so much, I'm just like, I don't like this book, I don't care. But I'm going to continue reading it. Because I wasn't enjoying the book, I decided to pick up Eleanor, Oliphant. I'm so bad at saying that book. I like to say Eleanor Opheliant, but it's obviously not that. But Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine. I absolutely loved this book. It's so funny. Like, I've already talked about it in my book haul because I'd already finished reading it by then. So I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but the book is so funny, and I think it's just such an easy read, really well done. I say really well done. I think if you've read a lot of books around sort of the topic of loneliness and things to do with that, maybe you won't find it that well done, but it's brilliant. It's really funny, and for me, because I was reading it in the midst of reading Lincoln in the Bardo, it was such an easy read and such an enjoyable read that I was just like, yep, I love this book. I'm totally down with it. I definitely read it again, and there were just so many points that I could identify with Eleanor in, especially, I spoke about this again in my book haul, but especially when she talks about the loneliness that she feels and when she hits rock bottom. So there's a chapter, I guess the last third of the book, when she hits rock bottom, I really identified with her, and I just really felt her pain, because I was just like, I've been there. Like, she just felt like so worthless, like she was just questioning why she belonged, and she was just obviously in a really awful place. So I think the book is great because it takes you throughout the highs and the lows. The ending isn't a neat ending, but it's also not a sad ending, so you sort of get a nice little conclusion, but life is still going to sort of go on for Eleanor. It could go either way. Yeah, there were some plot holes in it, but overall I think it was just a good book. I really thought it was good because of when I was reading it, but definitely recommend that you pick that book up. So that is the end of my March book wrap up. I hope that was enjoyable for you to watch. I again apologise because I am not feeling my best, so maybe I rushed through this. I will hopefully in my next book wrap up have finished reading Lincoln and the Bardo, so finally I'll be able to get that off my list. It's probably taken me like over a month now, or will have taken me over a month by the time I finish reading it, or listening to it. But yes, I hope you really enjoyed this video. Please leave me comments down below about if you've read any of these books. I would love to hear your thoughts on them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!